I've got nothing to add to the report, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Miller, are you wishing to come in?
Yeah, yes. Yeah, right, okay, I think I'm unmuted
Yes,
now.
thank you.
Yeah, I see these appeal decisions, especially the first one in East Kilbride Road. Now, all of us were out at that meet, a site visit and that. We went round the house. We seen the exit and entrance to it, and every one of us agreed that should have been knocked back because of the and planning rules. Now, what I'm told is the planner from Falkirk came. He never went into the house at all, never went into the curtilage of the house, looked at it from one neighbour, looked at it from the other neighbour, looked at it from across the road, and passed it. Now, if we go out there and we make a decision on planning rules, you know, what's the point of us doing that if they're just going to go and willy-nilly pass it? Now, as Betty will confirm, we have asked for the planning officers to come and speak to us so that we can actually ask them why they do this. We have yet to, you know, we've been asking for this for 7, 8 years, something like that. Nothing has ever happened. No. Now, this, to me, this is absolutely unbelievably crass. It should never have happened, but it has happened, and there's not a thing we can do about it. Now, the neighbours are going nuts. What's the point of us going out there and spending our time looking at that if they're just going to come along and pass it?
Oh,
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Miller. I'm just going to bring in Councillor Cornbury. Councillor Cunningham, she's had her hand up for a wee while, but I'll come straight to you after. Councillor Cornbury.
Thank you very much, Chair. It was just really exactly what Stuart says. I feel quite let down by the reporter. I mean, what's the point in us being entrusted by to make these decisions with our policies if they're not even going to be taken into consideration if it is appealed against, and if the reporter's just coming out, given a second-hand glance, and totally undoes what the job that we're supposed to be doing as a planning committee. So I'm very disappointed that that this one has been overruled because it was refused in the proper and under the proper conditions. So that was all, Chair. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham.
This is the 4 retail flats.
Oh no, this is.
No.
What was this?
It's the appeal. It's the East Kilbride Road appeal.
That was the house that we're out at.
Yes,
it's right next to the bridge. I'll tell you now. See, for road accidents, right?
Yeah. And
people been injured, it's not the responsibility now of the East Renfrewshire Council, but the planning anyway, because that's the reporter that's passed that, and I think it's atrocious that he's done it, and he must be very junior, in my view, if he's went out and passed that as a, safe. No. And I think we should be writing to him, asking him, come down, talk to us, find out the background, and that'll be it. So it would ask for another letter to go away to him, tell him, it begin to sound like GMTV folk, the minister's not going to go to it, so it's getting the same with us, with the reporter.
Thank you, Councillor Cunningham. I've got 2 hands up from Eamon and Graham. Mr. Shankland and Mr. Daly, are you wishing to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. It was really just to make you aware that I was able to get the record button to work now, so the meeting is actually being recorded.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shankland, are you wishing to come in?
Yes, it was just to clarify. Councillor Cunningham, I think, said, was this the property beside the railway bridge? Just to clarify, this isn't the one beside the railway bridge where they've applied for an access. This is the one further up.
That's not what she said. No, she didn't say the one. She didn't say the one next to the railway bridge. No.
I did.
Did you? Next to
the
railway.
No, it's not the one for. It's not the one
It's
next
the
to the
big
Dale
house
Bridge.
then further up the road.
Yes,
Aye,
yes.
but just as you come off the dual
Yeah.
carriageway.
Yes,
just past
it's the one further up on the way out towards East Kilbride on the left-hand side as you're leaving
Yeah,
Busby.
right, I
It's
know the
not
one
the
it is.
one
Then
next to
they'll
the
still get the
railway
same
bridge.
view. Any
Exactly.
heavy traffic and going in
Exactly
and
the
out
same
there.
view for traffic.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I feel exactly the same as the committee. We went out, we saw this, we decided under particular policies why it should be refused, and the reporters came out, and in their judgment it is not, but in our judgment, knowing the area, it was against these policies. So I'm really disappointed with this one as well. And yes, I would like to speak to them. I would like to get, we have asked twice that I know of before to get answers from the reporter. So I would like it noted again that we wish that, and I would like an answer to that request by the next meeting, if the committee's in agreement.
Well, I think it's the committee, the full committee have asked for years.
Yeah.
2 terms anyway, for these reporters to come out and do a lot of explaining to do with us.
We had agreement at a previous committee. I'll bring you in, Councillor Convery, in just 1 second. We had agreement in a previous committee that this would be looked at and the request would be made. I don't remember a response being given to us, but Councillor Convery?
It was just quickly to touch upon that. I mean, that has been, we have asked the officers on a number of occasions to contact the reporter, and like you says, we've never had a response back. It was just to find out, has that actually ever been done? Because it's been asked that many times and not to get even one response is a bit strange. So it was just to find out if it was actually ever followed through.
Can I ask anyone in planning that's available today, do you know if that has happened? Mr. Shankland, your hand is raised on the screen.
Yes, just to say, I'm not aware, I'm right new in this post, but I'm not aware what has been asked in the past, but I'll double check that, and I'll certainly make that request on behalf of the committee to the reporters unit, and I'll report back to you next month.
We would very much like this because the decision was made adhering to policies on this one. So yes, any information would be great, and also just an understanding of, you know, what's happening when they make these decisions and they overturn them. Now the other one that was on the appeals, is anyone wishing to speak to that one? That was a completely different matter. That was upheld. Well, no, it wasn't. It was overturned. Sorry. Mr. Shankland, do you have any information on that? Just a quick update.
Stuart's got his hand up, and I don't know.
Oh,
if
sorry,
he's
I'm
just
sorry.
took it down.
Stuart, are you wishing to come in just now? Your hand's still raised.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think this is one case of where we as a local community saw what was happening here, decided that it shouldn't go ahead. Not only that, the planners decided it shouldn't go ahead, and it's gratifying to see that actually the planners, the reporter can sometimes actually agree with us.
It is indeed. It is. Councillor Convery, are you wishing to come in on this one?
No, sorry, I've just not took my hand in. Sorry.
Okay. Councillor Cunningham, are you wishing to come in on the one, the appeal that they upheld our decision?
Yeah, well, I think they should have been upheld, right? And that's it. First time they've got it right. No bad.
Thank you very much. It was just, there was only one final point I noticed in the appeals decision for the first appeal that was reported back to us, that the reporter had noticed that several third parties had contended that the appeal proposal is a change of use for a religious meeting and associated parking. They said that irrespective of that, it would be open to the council to take enforcement action if it's considered that a material change of use had occurred without planning permission. I just wanted confirmation from planning that if this was to be reported, would that enforcement action be taken? Councillor Miller, you wishing to come in?
Yeah, I'm not wanting to get in the road of any of the planners, but I think we all know that we could really, as a council, we cannot take enforcement action. Yeah, we can write to them, we can do this, we can do that. But at the end of the day, if they want to do something, they'll do it, and there's nothing we can do, unfortunately.
I know. It was just because that was raised specifically by the reporter. They said that the council had said that it was just a residential extension with a large kitchen. So it was just to see. I wonder if anyone wanted to come in from planning, if that was reported.
Yes, Chair. I mean, if we get reports of that, then certainly we would investigate whether a change of use is occurring. So yes, if we get complaints, if we get inquiries of that nature, we will look at whether enforcement action is appropriate. Right. We would write out to the applicant, of course, and the homeowner in the first instance, and consider whether it was appropriate to take enforcement action.
Or whether, as you said, a change of use application would be required.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's great. Thank you very much. Move us on from the appeals then to the first planning application in front of us, 37 Busby Road, Clarkston, erection of 4 retail units following demolition of existing dwelling house. Can I pass over to yourself, Mr. Shankland, please, to speak to the application?
Yes, Chair. I don't have much to add to the report that's before you. The proposal is for 4 retail units following the demolition of the house there. There were 32 letters received in connection with this, 10 people supporting the proposal and 22 objecting to it. The site, in terms of the adopted local plan, the site is just outside the town centre, but on the edge of the town centre. But in terms of the local plan 2, that is away to examination by the reporters unit. It is within the town centre. The town centre has been extended southwards to the former Countrywide Estate Agents building. It's felt that the proposal is within the town centre. The economic impact assessment indicates that it may create perhaps between 10 and 20 jobs into the area and a gross value added to the area of £436,000 per year. As a site within the town centre, in terms of the proposed local plan, it's felt that this won't have an adverse impact on the town centre, and therefore we're recommending it for approval.
Oh my God.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miller and Councillor Convey, you get your hands up, and Councillor Cunningham, I'll come to you if you have any input as well, but Councillor Miller?
Thank you very much, Chair. And I'm actually going to quote from several of the objectors. The first one's Dr. Elliott, who mentioned this is perhaps, he mentioned this, he points out this is the oldest house in Clarkston, although it's perhaps not the oldest building. But if the LDP is going to do its job, then that is supposed to be to protect and enhance our built heritage. This is going to knock down our built heritage. Mrs. Sinclair points out that all the charity shops and highlights the one that's been empty for 2 years, while Mrs. Cargill details all the shops and have lain empty for a number of years and are still being marketed, albeit unsuccessfully. And Mrs. Miller, a neighbour, mentioned that it said in this claim there's 36 job opportunities, but that's not the case. If there's so many empty shops, there will be no job opportunities if the shops lie empty. 3 corresponds to Mr. Hayden, Mr. Blair and Mrs. Dooley. They've gone to great detail in their representation, and they're really worth reading. I must admit, they're really worth reading. They're really good. They counter every argument that the developers have put forward, and not only the economic arguments. And to give you one instance, it states that a displacement of commercial activities will be helped by all the new housing in Clarkston. Well, all of us on the Planning Applications Committee know there is no new housing in Clarkson in the LDP, so they're telling lies. And I'll now go back to my own comments, and as actually the only Clarkson resident on this committee. The station master's son was in my class at primary 1, so I've known this house for a long, long time. To build 4 shops on this site is an obvious overdevelopment, as many of the objectors have pointed out. And the one thing that Clarkson does need, and I've said this on many occasions, is more above anything else is more parking. Now, if we're going to be building 4 houses here, planning dictates that there has to be 2 parking spaces per house. So why is it not the case that you have 2 parking spaces per shop? We need an awful lot more than that. But if you're building 4 shops, you should have at least 2 parking places, which you can't do. So in conclusion, there is no shopping need. There is no provision for parking. And there is, sorry, I can't even read more writing. As 3 correspondents have already proved, there is no economic need and there is no economic argument. And if we are going to be serious about the provisions of our history and the preservation of our history, we have to do our best to maintain and protect this house, and hopefully it can be restored to its former glory. Obviously, I am objecting. I will vote against this.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Councillor Convery.
Thank you very much, Chair. Well, while I'm not a resident of Clarkston, I have been up there a few times, and it is quite the bottleneck for traffic up there already without these 4 shops even being built. I was a bit confused at the fact that there was the consultation with roads didn't come back with anything. So, I mean, our own policy D1 number 9, it says parking and access requirements of the council should be met in all development, and appropriate mitigation measures should be introduced to minimise the impact of new development. The development should take account of the principles set out in designing streets. Now, so how can the road? I don't understand how the roads department don't have any concerns whatsoever with the extra traffic this would cause, and the lack of parking spaces. And also it says that they don't have any problems subject to conditions, but reading through the papers, I couldn't see that the roads department had put any conditions in at all. So I don't understand how they can say subject. Is that subject to another department's conditions, or should it be subject to their own?
All right, thank you very much. Councillor Cunningham, were you wishing to come in?
Yes, please. Well, I've passed that house quite a lot, right, and it's quite a small house, right? So how they can get 4 shops on that site, I'll never know. The parking was the main thing, because people have got problems with parking in Clarkson just now. They've had it for years. And I just feel as though to add another 4 shops, where are they going to park? Because for me, they're right up to the traffic lights just now, right? And right down, right to where the traffic lights at the shops are. So I don't know unless it's pulled up. Eh? Sorry?
Oh, no, carry on, Councillor Cunningham.
Right.
Betty, it's your own echo.
The railway station's there, right? So you've got people, a lot of traffic coming out of there, right? Foot traffic, and that. But I just feel as though it's people have complained about the traffic, the parking, the potential accidents and everything else. And here we go, another 4 shops. Oh, just take more, just fill it right up to away past up to Snedden, the old Snedden roundabout. So it's beyond a joke.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cunningham. Provost, I see your hands up.
Thank you very much. Just unmuting my mic. Can you hear me okay? Yeah.
Yes.
Firstly, apologies for joining a bit late. Difficulties joining the meeting. I don't know what the problem was, but anyway, it's fine now. I'd probably take a contrary view to this. I mean, we've heard reporters overturn decisions. I mean, reading the report here, there's absolutely nothing in planning terms to stop this going through. People are suggesting there maybe should be roads objections. There aren't. That's the reality of it. There's nothing in planning grounds to stop it. It's in line with the local plan. And I just think in balance, I would probably be supportive. We're heading for a dreadful economic crisis in the UK, not just in Scotland. And there's already criticism for UK government, for Scottish government, and indeed for local government for not doing enough to prepare for the avalanche of unemployment, which is going to hit us probably before Christmas. So I just think we need to be positive. I mean, you're creating potential job opportunities that might be here for quite a bit in the future. It might provide long-term sustainable job opportunities for local people. I think you have to be positive and say after the pandemic that these shop units can be used productively to the benefit of local people. So I understand there's always objections from local people to any new developments, but in balance, I think it's worthwhile and I would support it.
Thank you very much, Provost. Councillor Swift.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to contradict Councillor Fletcher. I mean, yes, we do have to try to encourage economic development across East Renfrewshire. I absolutely would subscribe to that point of view. However, if we look at the area that's most likely to be, or one of the areas that is most likely to be impacted upon hugely, it's retail. And, you know, there are so many empty shops there. And we're talking about a preservation of the oldest house potentially in Clarkston. I don't see why there's a gain for the community as a whole. Perhaps overall, I think on balance, there's a loss for the community. As regards parking, we're entitled to oppose a lack of parking, as I did up in Eaglesham once upon a time ago, and it was all too late. We did, you know, I think Councillor Convery mentioned that it's a terrible bottleneck, and as did Councillor Cunningham. And we're in a position where we're going to provide additional retail that demand would suggest is not required. If it was likely to be required, it would have opened up during COVID, I'm suspecting, but it hasn't. You know, there are no shops that have opened up, so I don't believe it would be a useful addition to Clarkston. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Swift. Gillian, I saw your hand up for a while. Are you still wishing to come in, Mrs. McCartney?
Thanks, Chair. It was really just to clarify the parking situation. It's not uncommon for roads department the road service to not object to, for example, new development in town centres or insist on additional parking, mainly because most town centres have an element of off-street parking, which is the case in Clarkston, and there's also dedicated parking bays within the town centre. So obviously, if you're visiting the shops, you could just be stopping for, a quick message. So you'd be driving your car away, or you might come down for a coffee or to spend a couple hours. But it's unlikely, for example, in this particular town centre that many, there would be long-term parking. So that is generally why we don't seek additional car parking. It's also to try and ensure that the town centre stays viable and we attract new businesses and new, new eatings and, drinking places as well. So that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Swift, I see your hand up. Are you wishing to come back in?
Apologies, it's still up. I'll take it.
Okay. Mr. Shankland?
Yes, just to add to what Mrs. McCartney has said in response to Councillor Convery about the comments by the roads service, just for your information, the conditions, you said the roads department said no objection subject to conditions. The two conditions that they did recommend are contained in the recommended conditions on the report, conditions 1 and 2, on page 15 of your papers, which are about erection of a pedestrian guardrail at the front of the site next to the road, and also about the avoidance of drainage, or avoidance of water discharging onto the public road. So those were the two conditions that Roads Department suggested, and they have been included within the suggested conditions within the paperwork.
So,
Okay, thank you.
well, if they put a rail up, Chair, if they put a rail up, that means that people can't park there, because you need to come out the driver's side.
Yeah, there just would, but there's a lack of parking spaces at that area. I'm just hearing that my video is off. Is that correct? No,
No, you're there,
I
isn't it?
note that my video was off. I was just double checking.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. I've got a couple of comments myself as well. I noted that this was previously rejected by the planning department because there were a couple of reports they requested. One was that they wanted to make sure there would be no significant individual or cumulative impact on the vitality and viability of the existing town centre. Now, the additional information that's been given appears to be the economic impact report that the applicant has submitted. But I noticed that they're basing their figures on the fact that Clarkston only has, well, it's not only, so it's definitely not only, that Clarkston has a 10% vacancy void rate at the moment. And I think we've got another big shop. I think there's another one beside Tesco's that's just closed. The Chest, Heart and Stroke is just, that's closed as well. And they are comparing, in the economic report, they're comparing Clarkston to, now hold on till I get it, Dumbarton, Kilmarnock, Ayr, Kirkcaldy and Alloa, because they've all got much higher numbers of empty units, but that's not something I feel that we should be aiming for. The UK average for empty units is 9%. So if we're already at 10, the report's asking us to go above the UK average, then we already, and even more for the local area of Clarkston. So I don't feel that it meets the policy SG7, because I don't think that case has been made that there won't be a significant individual or cumulative impact. I think that Clarkston Town Centre actually would be impacted by these 4 units. I've got a question for planning. That this is, as a couple of councillors have said previously, it is the oldest building in Clarkston Town Centre. Building owners are responsible for preventing their buildings becoming defective or falling into dangerous conditions. Is the planning department looking at taking enforcement action in order to make the building safe, or ask the landowners to make it safe? Because it is being left to get quite derelict just now. And the other question was that Environmental Health asked that opening hours be put on this. There was a decision made not to restrict opening hours. If planning could come in on that, please.
Yes, certainly, Chair. 2 points there. The first one about the building being derelict. Certainly, the Building Standards Service, if any building is thought to be dangerous, they can serve notices on the property owners to rectify that. I'm not aware, while yes, it is decrepit, I'm not aware of it being suggested that it's dangerous. So I'm not aware of the Building Standards team having been asked to take any action on the property. Certainly, if the building becomes a significant eyesore, then there are planning enforcement powers. Again, I'm not aware of any suggestion that it has quite got to that stage yet, but that is something we could look at if that does happen.
It was just, sorry to interrupt, Graham, it was just that a few of the letters and support mentioned eyesore and that it was dangerous. So that's why I was asking the question.
Sure, yeah. In terms of opening hours, yes, that was a condition that was suggested by Environmental Health. That tends to be applied where there are residential properties in the immediate vicinity, and particularly if it's in a residential area. It was felt that this was within or on the edge of the town centre, and therefore one would expect perhaps later evening opening hours. So it wasn't felt appropriate that we would add that condition. But if you felt, if you were minded to grant the application and felt that was appropriate, then we could certainly do that.
Thank you very much. Councillor Miller, you wishing to come in?
Yeah, thanks very much. I heard the Provost, and I quite agree with a lot of what he said. But at the present moment, as you yourself, Chair, has said, that there's a 10% empty shops in Clarkson, and being 134 in the bid area, that means 13 or 13 and a half, 14 shops lying empty at present. So I think we have plenty of scope for new businesses to come in. Not only that, you mentioned the one large shop that's being vacated. I'm told there is another large shop very close to it, just heading the same way as well. So I think we have enough empty shops to justify new business, or to bring in new business. Also, going back to your point about some of the supporters saying it's a decrepit and dangerous building. I know the butterfly lady, who was she was called locally, didn't do anything for the house all the years she was there. But as far as I'm concerned, the house is still perfectly safe. The only thing that might not have been safe is when she stayed in it, the garden was overrun with rats, and we had quite a problem with rats. But that has since been sorted, and environmental health has sorted that one out. So if it has to be made safe, it's up to the new owners, I would suggest, to do that, and rather than up to the council.
Oh yes, absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Is anyone else wishing to come back in just now? I was just going to quickly sum up. There was mention of it being against policy D1 because of the scale and massing of the development, and also with regard to D1, yourself, Councillor Convery, spoke about the parking requirements not being met. And yourself, Councillor Miller, spoke about D1. It would probably, and probably SG7 not being sort of working against the local high street rather than for it. I agree, and I cannot feel that I can recommend that we. Well, I will not move that we accept the recommendation. I would like to move that we reject the recommendation and refuse the planning application.
Can I say?
Thank you very much. Unless anyone's otherwise minded.
Chair, my view is it should go ahead, so I would obviously vote against that, or I'm happy to accept the planner's recommendation on it.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have a seconder? Okay, nope, thank you very much. Can I hand back to yourself, Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah, through you, Chair. Obviously, you've been moved a motion, second by Councillor Miller, that the application should be refused. Provost Fletcher has moved that the application be granted subject to conditions detailed in the report. However, he didn't get a seconder, so obviously his amendment falls. Just for the purposes of the record, could you actually just clarify the reasons for the refusal?
Yes, the main reason that was coming out, I've just went over them, but I'm more than happy to go back. Policy SG7, that the application is against that. Also policy D1 with regard to scale on and massing on the site, and it would be a significant loss of character to the local area. And D1, that the parking and access requirements are not met. Is that, if anyone else has got anything else to add just now, if the committee would like to be taken into account?
The only thing I would like to suggest is going against the built heritage.
Oh, yes, thank you very much.
On that basis, Chair, the decision of the committee is that the application be refused for the reasons outlined by yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. Can I move us on to the second application, referenced 2020 0330, 18 Gordon Road, Netherley, erection of 1.5 storey dwelling following demolition of existing dwelling house. Can I turn to yourself, Mr. Shankland, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is the application at 18 Gordon Road. The report starts on page 25 of your papers. The proposal is to demolish the house here and rebuild and replace the house. The surrounding area is largely or exclusively low-rise bungalows with shallow pitched roofs and pitched in at the sides. The proposal here is for replacement with a sort of chalet-type bungalow with a single pitch roof front and back, gable ends at the side, and it is felt that the proposal would be out of scale and out of character with the surrounding area. There are 17 objections from the surrounding area to that as well, and it's felt that it would also be in a prominent location to be of that character. So the application is recommended for refusal. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shankland. I'll open it out to the committee. Councillor Miller, I see your hand up.
Thank you very much once again, Chair. I actually see all the representations, and the most of which I agree with, although it says one of the objectors says it's flats out of place, but it's not really flats. But the planning officer has said it was completely out of character for all houses round about it, which is exactly, Graham has just said, it's exclusively bungalows there. So I think everyone's, I'm not saying everyone's the same, but it's more or less the same type of house. If you're going to build a house like this, it was going to be totally out of character to everything else, and you're going to set a precedent. So I agree with all the objectors.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Provost?
Thank you, Chair. Just to say again, I would support the recommendation of the planners here and refuse this. I mean, you don't get that level of objection from local people without there being a genuine concern. And whilst it's always nice to grant planning applications for an individual who might want to extend their property, it certainly shouldn't be done at the expense of, you know, a substantial number of neighbouring properties. So again, as in the last case, I would support the planners in this, and I would vote against this application being granted.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Provost. Councillor Cunningham, are you wishing to come in?
No, I'm fine. I agree with the officer as well.
Thank you. Councillor Convery, you wishing to come in? Okay, all right. Councillor Swift? Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Can I move that we...
I want to come in.
Thank you very much, Councillor Swift. Can I then move that we accept the recommendation to refuse? Do I have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Miller. Unless anyone's otherwise minded? Okay, thank you very much. Can I pass back to yourself, Mr. O'Neill?
Yeah, through you, Chair, just on that basis, you've moved that the application be refused for the reasons outlined in the report, seconded by Councillor Miller. There's not been any otherwise minded, so on that basis, the application's been refused.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you very much to everyone for your time today. Thank you.
Chair,
We need to hang up, don't we?
If I could come in at this stage, yes, if you could just hang up from this meeting, please, councillors, and rejoin through the link for the LRB after this. We need to do that because the meetings are separate. We need to record them separately. So if you could do that, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, cheers.
Right. What the hang am I doing now? Wait a minute. That's the other one. Oh.